Let's look at some of the operations we can do with dictionaries. Dictionaries are probably, of all the data structures, the most similar to lists in their operations. And we can do a number of operations with dictionaries. We can access the key's value, just like we can access an item in a list. We can update the key's value, just like we can update item in a list. And we can add new key value pairs, and we can delete key value pairs. So if we want to access a value in a list, it's very similar to what we do with, if we want to access a value in a dictionary, it's very similar to what we do in a list. We're going to use that square bracket notation, but instead of using the index, we're going to use the key to obtain the value. So if we have this dictionary with the keys are letters and the values are dog breed names, we can access any one of those dog breed names using the square bracket notation. So we use the dictionary name, the square bracket notation that we're used to, but instead of the index, which we don't have in dictionaries, we're going to use the key that is associated with the value that we want. So if we print out these two statements, we will have our string that we printed, and then here we're going to get the value. So we've accessed the value that's associated with the key C, and here we've accessed the value that's associated with the key B. If we want to update the value, so just like with a list, we can change the value. It's a mutable data structure. We're going to use, again, the square bracket notation and, again, the key to indicate which value we'd like to update. So, again, very similar to list. We can take the dictionary name, the square bracket notation, and instead of the index, again, like we would use in list, we're going to use the key whose value we want to change. So our previous value at B was Bessigny. Now we're going to make it Beagle. So if we make that change and then print it out, this is what we'll get. So now the value of B is Beagle. And notice that the order in which the dictionary has been printed out is different than the order that it was created. So when the dictionary was created, as we saw in the previous slide, it was in alphabetical order by keys. First A, then B, then C. So why is this out of order? Why is it printing out a different order than it was created in? Well, remember that dictionaries are not organized by order. They're not ordered like lists are. They're organized by association. So when you're iterating over a dictionary, you don't know ahead of time what order it's going to come out in. So that's something to think about. If you want to print out the items in a dictionary that you've created, even if you've entered them when you created them, even if you put them in a certain order, when you print them out, they're not necessarily going to come out in that order. So that's something to keep in mind when you're working with dictionaries that is different from lists. Okay, so we saw how to access a value and how to update it, very similar to lists. Here's something that's different than lists. If you want to add new values, we don't use the append method. That's specific to lists. Instead, we're simply going to state the key and value we want to add, again using the square bracket notation. So this is the same notation that we use to access a value and to update the value. Here, we're going to use that square bracket notation. We're going to put a key in between those brackets that we don't have yet in the dictionary, use the assignment operator, and then give the value that we want this new key to have. So if we do that and we add a couple and then print out our dog breeds dictionary, this is what we're going to get. So now we have D for Dunker and E with the value Eurasia. And notice again that they're in random order. The other thing we can do with dictionaries is delete the key and the value. And if you're going to delete a value, you have to delete the key. And vice versa, if you're going to delete a key, you have to, of course, delete the value. You can't have a key with no value, and you can't have a value with no key. So for this, we have a special keyword, the DEL or the DEL keyword. You use the keyword and then specify the key that you want it to delete. So it simply is DEL with a space, followed by, again, the square bracket notation. And this keyword with the square bracket notation is going to delete both the key D and the value that's associated with that key. Find out what we do after the deletion. We'll notice that we're missing that key and the value. Let's look at another example, another operation we can do working with lists. Let's say we have two lists. And let's say the lists have the same length, and the contents at each index in both of those lists correspond to each other in some way. So let's say Patrick is the name that we have, and his major is social work. Amber is pre-med. So we need the items in the two lists to correspond, so we put them in the same index, like this. So in the list names, Patrick, Amber, and Sam correspond to the items in the list major, social work, pre-med, and art. So Patrick, which is at index 0, is associated with the major social work, and Amber at 1 is associated with pre-med, which is at index 1 in the major list. We can actually create a dictionary from these two separate lists. So previously, in a previous video, we saw how to create a dictionary from a two-dimensional list with two items in the lists. We can actually take two separate lists and create a dictionary. Slightly different method here. So we're going to, of course, start with a variable name for our dictionary. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take the list where we want to get our keys from and put that first, comma, and then the list of that we want to get our values from. And we're going to put this in the function called zip. Now, we're going to look at zip in more detail in another video, but for now, it's enough to know that it's going to do exactly what we want it to do. It's going to take the item from each of those lists that are at the same index in both those lists and pair them together. And then we cast that using the dict function, and that's going to give us our key value pairs in a dictionary. And this is what the output will be if we print it out. So Patrick is the key associated with the value social work, Amber with pre-med, and Sam with art, just like we need it to be.